Hello, Don in London. 31st of October, last day of the month. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol. My behaviour, equally addictive, around people, places and things. Why? Well, with a drink inside me, I found I wanted to be with people who drank, in the right places, with the right things, doing the right things. And this went on for a long time. So, how did I end up being addicted to alcohol? Well, I just kept on drinking it. And the thing is, it's very, very slow sometimes, slow progress into the addiction, or sometimes it's very quick and people realise very quickly that they are stuck in an addiction. And then they do something about it, and some people find that they can get professional medical help and it helps them. Some people find that they think they know it all, and I was in that category of having enough intelligence in the end to know that I needed to stop drinking. But whatever I did, the self-will, willpower, all those things failed in the end to stop me, because the nature of addiction is we can't stop doing something over and over again which is harming us. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I think it was Einstein who came up with that one. So why is it that we cannot stop? I still haven't found out the answer, but I have stopped drinking, and I have had a lot of help from people who know how, and that included medical and professional people who got me dry from drinking, but dry drunk, as they say, still full of all the feelings and mishaps and misunderstandings about how to live life sober without drinking. Goodness me. So they suggested, I didn't want to do it, but they suggested, why not go to a fellowship who can help you with your addiction problem, and that is Alcoholics Anonymous. So a very reluctant student here, and I was reluctant and not very good at it, because I kept on trying to think my way out of my situation, and I misunderstood what AA is. AA is an emotional, spiritual program of well-being. Emotional, in as much as I know my feelings today, and spiritual, as one cleric said, spiritual is the ability to cope with reality. So when I went to AA, thinking they would help me think my way out of it, using my intelligence, I was barking up the wrong tree. It turned out, if I knew what my feelings were today, and I could cope with reality without a drink, I could change my outlook, my attitudes and behaviour. That's how it works. But the great big but in all of this, giving up that best friend, alcohol or whatever it is, a substance, and apparently there are worse substances than alcohol which cause addiction. But the problem is, once you're in addiction, you're an addict. And I'm an addict, but I'm in recovery, one day at a time. So the Fellowship of AA helped me sort out what my feelings are on a daily basis and how to cope with reality. And the funny thing is, it still works, because I am part of Fellowship. I talk about the AA program or AA Fellowship here. I don't represent it. I can't, because the Fellowship has a primary purpose for people to be sober and get on with the rest of their lives how they choose. And I choose to share about how recovery is going and how, in a general way, other people help me with their experience, strength and hope, because I was asked to do it as a stopgap for people who can't get to meetings, and a way of explaining how the fellowship works. And the way it works is very simple. It's on the AA preamble, which I'll show in just a moment, which is on this card here. And inside it has two sets of 12 steps, 12 traditions, And they're the 12 steps for me to learn how to be open, honest and willing to live my life. And the 12 traditions are all about unity, service and recovery. So in fellowship it's all about unity, service and recovery, and that's how it works. So we learn from literature and each other how to live life again, with all the freedom of not having to be addicted to anything, a substance, people, places or things, or self-harming behaviour, because that's old behaviour based on what we used to do to get by, to fix ourselves, often to enjoy ourselves to a great extent, and then find ourselves flat on the floor the following day, either with a hangover or some sort of fear and paranoia of, will people realise that I had a really good night out last night? All the things that I desired happened in whatever department, and now I feel a bit knackered. And the answer is, if you keep on doing that over and over again, the insanity of addiction will catch up eventually, or we die early. And you know, there are very good examples around, and I don't mean it in a horrible way. Amy Winehouse gave up drugs but kept on drinking, and had 3 or 4 times over the limit, driving limit that is, but enough to kill her, stone dead. And she fought a battle, apparently. That's what I hear from family. But the thing is, I'm not fighting a battle. I'm not battling with anything. When I tried to do it on my own, isolated, the paranoia always crept in, the fear crept in, the abundance of desolation and darkness and depression came upon me, and I would go out and do it again, to find oblivion from me and my reality, which was horrible. I didn't know which way to turn. So when I asked for help after years and years and years, and found myself homeless, sitting on a park bench, please can you help me, I said to a psychiatric registrar at my local hospital in the A&E department, emergency room. They made me wait for several hours to sober up a bit, and then we had a long discussion, and it turned out that I'd been trying over and over again to do it on my own, but also I'd gone to a rehab which was entirely unsuitable for me, and it took away everything and put nothing back in its place. So after a long discussion it was agreed I would be put in some sort of temporary accommodation, which happened to be in a horrible place where other people were using, and at least have a roof over my head, and then see about going to fellowship, where I had had some experience, but every time the fellowship seemed to be working for me and people were helping me, the rest of the world seemed to conspire against me. So there was no respite in rehab for me, and that's because the people there running it didn't know what they were doing, and I know that from my previous experience as a counsellor and the psychology of what they were doing. They didn't have enough time to break people down and build them up, and they were very good at breaking people down further and people dying as a consequence. And there were people with other disorders besides alcoholism in that rehab. One had cancer, and I told them he had cancer, and they didn't believe me, but I've experienced what it's like to help people with cancer. And he did have cancer, and I don't know what happened to him. Apparently he was diagnosed in the end, but that was after 6 months. So anyway, my experiences along the way from those who call themselves professionals has been mixed, but I did bump into many professional people, independent, private and in the National Health Service, who were a tremendous help. So if something works along the way, work with it. The fellowship works for me, and that's where I ended up. And what I found is people were learning how to make progress in their lives. They were never perfect. Some had a lot of wisdom, but still had a fairly bad experience of life, because life throws things at us, and as we get older, more things go wrong. It's almost like things fall off. Anyway, the good news is that fellowship is there for everyone. So I saw a friend of mine who's now, he must be 19 now. I've known him for 3 years, and he's a marvel. You know, he's a walking miracle because he's sober, and he knows that he needs to stick close to fellowship to stay sober. And whenever he speaks, I just hear good words. And I was very lucky last night. I went to a fellowship meeting, but I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So I share the AA preamble, something of the steps, and October's all about step 10, simply making spot check inventories of what I'm doing. Well, if I'm disturbed for some reason, happy or angry, whatever it is, if it's at an extreme, I say, hang on a minute, Donald, what's going on? So, what is AA? For those who go, some love it, some hate it, some are in between. Sometimes we love it and sometimes we hate it, and sometimes we wonder what on earth is going on. It's just like life. But the good news is you can say what you like. You can be yourself. And you don't have to worry because it's anonymous. No one is out there to get you. So, Alcoholics Anonymous, the preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So it's the biggest self-help fellowship you can possibly imagine, but nobody's going to tell you what to do. And if they do, you can tell them to bugger off. They may suggest things to you, and this is why. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So that's the only qualification, if you need one, a desire to stop drinking. So you don't even have to call yourself an alcoholic. And some people say there are people in AA who are not truly alcoholics. Who am I to judge, and who are they to judge? Just because they have been on Skid Row, just like me. I got on Skid Row, and the good news is that most alcoholics have a Skid Row in their house, because whether you're on the park bench or a very luxurious settee, the problem is the same. We can't stop doing something which is harming us. So bugger that for an idea. There is only one type of alcoholic, the one who has a desire to stop drinking, who's in fellowship. So, and there are no rules, laws or regulations, so nobody can judge you for what you are or what you say or what you do. But they will talk about it to you if it gets on their nerves, because we're human. So one requirement, a desire to stop. And even if you haven't got a desire to stop, which is where I entered AA, because I didn't go there of my own volition, somehow eventually I stayed long enough to find out how to be sober. Anyway, there are no dues or fees for AA membership, and this was important last night, and I'll go on about that in a minute. So if you haven't got any money, don't attempt to put in your last pennies, because you need your last pennies for the next cup of tea somewhere, or whatever it is. But we are self-supporting through our own contributions, so there are enough people in fellowship who are working and can make a contribution to make it happen. Pay the rent for the room for an hour or so, tea, coffee, biscuits and literature. But if the meeting's poor, you may only get a meeting. It doesn't necessarily follow that all meetings are able to keep going to the luxurious extent of tea, coffee, biscuits and literature, and that's often a difficulty, but I'll talk about that in a moment too. So we are self-supporting through our own contributions. Those of us who've got a few pennies, we put it in. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. So AA is about sober, nothing else, but everybody in AA is allied to everything outside. So you will hear everything, opinions on anything, about anything and everything. And you make yourself available to listen to things which are working. So we look for the similarities rather than the differences, and it is suggested when you're listening to people, look for the similarities in their life story, and you will hear your life story like I do over and over again. But I like hearing it because I'm the same, I'm similar to other people. I'm not so different as I thought I was, but my life is different, and I am unique, and I'm unique in where I am in my journey of life. Our primary and because of that, the only thing is, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And not giving too much away, but over the last few days I've had a lot of questions about how to help people. If you're sober, how do you help another person get sober? Well, the answer for me is very clear now. Not on your own, because if you try and do it on your own, you're likely to be pulled into the pit with them. And I was explaining to somebody, if you're trying to help another person get well, who is addicted, you probably, and they're in the pit of despair and the addiction they're in, whilst they're in that pit and you're trying to pull them out, make sure you've got 10 people with ropes attached to your waist, holding you back from the precipice, because without help, we get sucked back into the malady, the old attitudes, the old thinking, especially if we love someone. So the closer the person is to us, often it's the hardest thing to try and help them out of addiction. We love them so much, we forgive so much, and quite rightly, because don't forget, addiction is a disease. We get it because we don't know about it, and it's the disease which tells you you haven't got it. And it would be okay just to have another drink. And where would that lead? Well, the simple answer is, one drink won't fix me. I need 1,000 drinks to fix where I am, or I need new outlooks, attitudes and behaviour of not drinking and being happy and experiencing why ordinary life is extraordinary and becomes extraordinary as we go along. Real life rather than fantasy life based on an altered perception of what's going on by being out of it, elated or seeking oblivion because life is just too horrible, which is where it usually ends up. But last night it was great, the meeting, beautiful chair, all about recovery, all about the mishaps. Every single mishap you can possibly imagine happened to this person, and it sounded just like my story, except for one or two exceptions, and how they utilised the 12-step program even though they didn't want to do it at the beginning. Suddenly their life started to turn around, letting go the old ways and starting new ways of living, from poverty to being okay, just being okay with life and where it is. And then we have what is called a group conscience, which is part of it's very interesting because it sort of fits in with the daily reflection and some of the stuff I've been talking about this month. We had a group conscience, and it turned out it was when do we pass the pot in a meeting to ensure that we get enough money to pay the rent, tea, coffee and biscuits and literature. And over the years this meeting has sent the pot round at the beginning of the meeting and found not enough. After the chair, where somebody shares their story and then we share back, then put the pot round at that stage and it seemed to get more money, just enough. Or at the end of the meeting, when half the people have gone home early because they want to watch the end of Come Dancing or something, or they've got other things to do. You know, people behave in meetings as they behave. And I've been treasurer of this meeting, so I know some months it doesn't cover the costs, but other months, depending on the weather and whether people are in London or not in London, it makes more than enough or less than enough. But over the months it sort of averages out. So we asked our treasurer, how are things financially, and they were able to give us a rundown of, well, take an average over a couple of months, we're doing all right. But if we start sending the pot round over and over again in order to get enough money to pay for that 1 hour's rent, we will kill the atmosphere of welcome, because we're seeking to get money off newcomers sometimes who feel quite aggrieved that this pot's being thrust in their face, and they think, well, what on earth's going on here? Why do I have to pay this money? What's it all about? And of course when it says it's free at the point of entry, but we are self-supporting and you're a newcomer and you feel an obligation to put in some money, it sets something off in your own mind, and you can look at it all the different ways you like. But what I know is, the more we try and enforce something on people or impose something on people, the more likely it is they'll go to other meetings where nobody's asking them, you know, you must help pay for this meeting today. Well, if it averages out over the years and months and years, and it seems to work all right, and we sent some money to the main office to cover admin costs and stuff like that, it's doing all right in my opinion. So the answer was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But maybe if we do get £5 extra after the chair, people are showing their gratitude. Anyway, the upshot was, it was a very quick group conscience. When do we want to send the pot round? And it turned out to be after the person's spoken and before everybody clears off to watch the end of Come Dancing. So there you are. You see, we were practical, and we do know that some weeks it won't make the money, but other weeks it will make twice as much because there was more people about that weekend. Practical, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, applies to the less rules you have, the less you try and impose disciplines on people in meetings. Just let them be, the better it is, and the more people who go to that meeting. And then the issue of money is never there, because people are happy, and if people are happy, they'll put in the price of a cup of tea. That's all it takes. And I'm gleeful when that happens, because I don't want rules, laws and regulations. If you put rules, laws and regulations in, people won't go. And if you impose your ideas of how the meeting should run, rather than just let it be a meeting that runs itself, even though it may seem a little bit disorganised. If you've got the 12 steps on the wall and the 12 traditions on the posters and a few other things which are provoking some feelings or thoughts, all well and good, and you listen to somebody and then you share back. Job done. And then what you do about the steps, well, that's a personal matter, but they do work for me. They're life principles, they're living principles, they're timeless, and they empower me to be me, how I feel right now and what I can do about it, without going back to the old behaviour of I need a drink in order to function. I don't need a drink. If I have a drink, I won't function. So the AA daily reflection for today is avoiding controversy. All history affords us the spectacle of striving nations and groups finally torn asunder because they were designed for or tempted into controversy. Others fell apart because of sheer self-righteousness, while trying to enforce upon the rest of mankind some millennium of their own specification. In other words, we all have good ideas about how to run meetings, but if you follow the basic AA fellowship philosophy, open meeting with different titles for different reasons or whatever, you can have an open meeting, you can have a closed meeting, but the more you enforce your own personality on it, the more likely it is that you'll be on your own and with your own personality. As an AA member and sponsor, I know I can cause real damage if I yield to temptation and give opinions and advice on another's medical, marital or religious problems. I am not a doctor, counsellor or lawyer. I cannot tell anyone how he or she should live. However, I can share how I came through similar situations without drinking and how AA's steps and traditions helped me in dealing with my life. So we share about what happened to us. But if we try and impose anything on anyone, what a mistake that is. So I try not to do that. But I guess I share my personality, my feelings about freedom. You know, AA has given me the ultimate freedom to be me, to know my feelings and cope with reality. So what else is there beyond that? You know, the freedom to go out and spend an hour in a meeting a day, or however many times a week you feel you need to go. It's your choice to feel comfortable in your own skin without being rigid. You're free again to learn. Humility to keep on learning life. You know, the more we hide or make things private, the worse it is, because we're covering up all the time. We can't be ourselves in case somebody finds out something about us. That's the way, that's back into the disaster. It's where paranoia lives. And inside paranoia is anger, resentment, all the rest of it, which will drag us back into the mire faster than anything. Anyway, my thoughts today. The fellowship aimed to avoid controversy by having one primary purpose, and that's sobriety. Thank you, founders, and so good we can all have our own opinions on outside matters. We hear them, we share them, and we get quite heated about them. All issues of life today. And still we are sober, one day at a time. Free to feel life as it is in the moment of now. And as I say here, great meeting last night. A chair which made me realise the importance of the steps all over again. I mean, I never get away from the steps because they're embedded in me. They have embedded value for those who are accountants. Embedded value for those who don't know is that if you've got the steps inside you, the wisdom keeps on growing about how you want to live your life. And you make your directions. You don't over-expect things. Set your expectations to 0 each day, and you haven't got any resentment coming. But you can still plan ahead and make right steps towards those aims. And if they're realistic, and you're following the steps carefully, including everyone without hiding anything, you may get there. So, yes, great meeting last night, a chair which made me realise the importance of the steps. Living principles to keep sober. So they're not rules, laws or regulations, because they wouldn't work like that, because we alcoholics resent any sort of confinement. The newcomer, how crucial it is to include them and support them, and then fantastic sharing of life stories. This is what I heard. And then a group conscience, which worked and made good suggestions to keep the group safe and secure by doing virtually nothing, because nothing was broken. And there is a phrase, if it ain't fixed, don't... What's it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The thing to remember is, most people coming into the fellowship are broken, and we're not going to fix each other. We're going to find out how to live our lives as we want, live our lives as we need to. Needs met, wants most likely forgotten, and stop living in fantasy. We can still fantasize about life, and some of us who get older just need fantasies these days. That's just me. And I love my life just the way it is. I've got great friends, and everyone, there's so many people far away. It's just, you know what, it's really good to know that you can love people without conditions, and also know your limitations around that, which is really this one here. Next, questions asked several times from all over the world about how to help a person deal with their own addiction. And yes, it's 4 times in a weekend, which is and other things about trying to help a person see how it is sober, even at the end of a bit of a binge. So the problem is, highly intelligent people often think their way out of the problem, just like I did. And I've put in brackets me, average intelligent, with a big ego back then. So I was averagely intelligent enough to know what my problem was and what the solution was, but my ego stopped me getting help. And if it hadn't been for that, I went to the emergency room and said, I really need help, but I don't know what to do next. And without me going to ask for help, being told that it was okay that rehab didn't work, and the person, a very good psychiatrist, said that rehab wasn't for you, and he said, I can't imagine it's good for anyone. And not long after that it shut down for whatever reason. It lost its funding. So highly intelligent people often think their way out of the problem, just like I did. Me, average intelligent with a big ego. But I didn't know I had an ego. The ego was, I knew the problem and I thought I knew the solution from an intelligent thinking point of view, which is strange really, because the fellowship is about emotional, spiritual sobriety, and having a higher power in our lives for many of us, which I call truth, love and wisdom. Some call it God, and that's okay, but you can be anything you like, because I've been an atheist, an agnostic and a believer depending on my life experience, and my life experience today tells me the truth is out there. Learning how to love people and be loved back unconditionally, it's different. And somebody else said that last night. They said for the first time in their lives, their partner has said, bugger off and don't come back until you've sorted yourself out. And they did. And then they said, I needed to learn how to love again, or rather to love for the first time without conditions. It's the difference in their relationship over the years of him being sober, as far as I can go. I want no names, no pack, all that. The difference in their relationship, a loving relationship rather than a fearful loving relationship, what on earth is going to happen next? It wasn't that it became predictable, it became unpredictable in a fantastic way, because both people in the relationship were open and looking at the world and listening to the world and letting the world in, rather than hiding problems and isolating. So believing I had the power to cure myself and others was the thing, because I had been a counsellor, I'd done it in business scenarios, I'd done it in private life, I'd helped psychiatrists with patients they couldn't medicate, all sorts of processes and understandings, except for one, how to do it for me. I thought I knew how to do it for me, but I didn't, because I buried and pushed it all down and with alcohol. So what do I say? It does take a village to raise a child. It doesn't matter whether you're a single parent or two parents or whatever it is. A child is raised by a great number of people within a community or a village. So if it does take a village to raise a child and a fellowship to keep me sober, the gratitude I have is immense. And I keep on learning how to help or be helped by learning from others. And no two situations are the same. So it can be very difficult to deal with life. Anyway, there are other words from other years which I'll put on the blog, and there'll be a link from YouTube to the blog, as long as I remember. But you'll find the connection. Just put DonInLondon in a web thing, and you'll find a blog with me on it. So, and that's not being, I forget sometimes to do that. So sometimes people like to read the words, sometimes people watch a bit of this and they say, right, that's enough for me, and go off afterwards. And that's just how it should be. So what's important is being sober one day at a time. And I'm very lucky, fortunate, grateful for all the people I've met along the way in all the aspects of work I did, even when I had a nervous breakdown through exhaustion and trying to do the right thing with the wrong boss. I played my part in all of that because I thought I knew better, and all my life I did. Because I went through so many disasters and saw how organisations fell apart and then how to put them together again, or how to build an organisation out of nothing. I don't do that anymore. Life has changed dramatically. I'm doing more of what I feel is right for me with what I have. My life is big, but it's small. It's a big, small life, but it's okay, because my feelings, I know what my feelings are when things happen, so they can be up or down. I can go into long depression because that's just part of my makeup, if you like. Chemical imbalance is caused by whatever. They don't get caused by addictive substances anymore. What a relief. So if I am depressed and I know where the desolation is, sometimes it's just desolate because that's how clinical depression goes. And then it goes up again in terms of mood. So sometimes I don't know it's happening, even though I might ask myself, how am I feeling, what can I do? I may have been going down a hill for quite a while, and one or two people said, "Oh, you look better today." He said, "For years you look pale and pasty and horrible." And I said, "Thanks very much." But he's a great bloke, and he's been in for a long time, and he does strange things. He's been out there and done all the different types of solutions spiritually. But he said, "You know what, after all that, it comes down to one thing: knowing how I feel right now and coping with reality." He said, you were right about that." And I said, "Well, it wasn't you who said it." And it came out of a conversation with my mother, who did teach yoga and was on the British Reel of Yoga as an assessor of yoga teachers and all of that sort of stuff. And I asked her one day, "What is spiritual?" And she said, "Well, there is a person, a cleric, who said spiritual is the ability to cope with now." I said, "Is that it?" And she said, "Yes, everyone's their own guru. There's no high level guru, and any level of consciousness which is derived from heightening one's chemical imbalances in here is a chemical imbalance induced by something or other, activity, substance. So if you feel right and are coping with the moment of now, there is your answer: emotional and spiritual balance. The Serenity Prayer helps me any time of day when I can go off and get cross and be angry with people. And sometimes I react and respond in very, very impolite ways, because that's what I do. I'm human. But then, there is a part of me which says, don't do that, because you don't need to make it worse. And all I need to do is bugger off and mind my own business. So the Serenity Prayer helps me do that. It's the can do, can't do. Can do, change me, my attitudes and behaviour. Can't do, rule the world, change you, your attitudes and behaviour. My way, or the highway, no. Just get on the highway and bugger off from people who are not for you. That's what I do. So the Serenity Prayer helps me, and it goes like this. So it's to God, or in good conscience, as you come to understand for yourself, this higher power malarkey. For me, God is truth, love and wisdom. Gandhi said, and I like what Gandhi said, because it's practical. He said, God is truth, and I'm full of opinion and belief. So the truth comes from other people, in my view, or people inform me about the truth, and we work out what the truth is together. God is truth, love, how to love people, be loved back, and the wisdom of the universe, bigger than I can define. So, I'm not God, thank God. Whoever he, she or it is, I have no complaints on that. I'm not the higher power. But if I feel like I am the only person who can help you, I need to watch out and be careful, because I'm not. I can't do it on my own. That's just me, and that's my solution. Help always around me, for whatever reason. So to God, or in good conscience, as you come to believe for yourself. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the moment, often, and just for today.